in our time of the 202nd century, through Nikola Tesla's works, we take the vacuum's energy so easily that it is not subject to any trade. The ancient Greeks called the emptiness, ether, which is the ultimate source of all the cosmos energy.
The main source of energy for the neo-feudal industry is oil, highly polluting and soon out of stocks.
Although scientists recognized and experimented the existence of the invisible energy, substrate of the matter, capable of unifying their physics laws. By the way, most of these discoveries were the fact of independent researchers.
Official authorities preferred to burn until the last drop, this precious liquid fossil whose composition allowed the elaboration of fabulous molecular chains with numerous applications. For the future, governments and industries invested heavily in the atom, while the dam to all new technologies. Various new methods of electrolysis, not energy-hungry at all, and not calorific, allowed in real time the hydrogen's extraction and its direct use as a powerful fuel. Also from water, cold fusion was the subject of research, leading to the design of a first generation of fuel cells already remarkable. The magnetic motor is another example and was sold the first time in Japan, as the engine Minato in car air conditioners. There were many other tracks used successfully by researchers, most often to the detriment of their social condition, at worth, against their own life. Indeed, these visionaries with a salvation's mission were despised by the scientific community in the pay of large financial groups. These inventors were silenced by corruption and violence. Radioactivity attacks the core of life. The multiplication routine of nuclear power plants, and their waste discharges, the fragility of these facilities facing the natural disasters, wars and terrorism, and finally the link to the weapons industries made them as many impregnable deadly poison sources for the Earth's ecosystem. The nuclear power plant in Fukushima goes wrong. The reactors were no longer sufficiently cooled and began to fuse, releasing into the air appalling amounts of radioactive particles, poisoning the atmosphere, the sea, rivers and lands, foods and peoples, according to winds, tides and rainfalls. A very rich and generous nature, which could resume life as soon as she had given it. This factual situation had forged Japanese mentality and referred it to a sense of impermanence, a strong social cohesion and an intimate connection with nature, but also had developed a capacity to enjoy of life as well as ability to work without limits for survival. The country's economic machine was producing very large wealth. The standard of living was very high, although people did not seem fully get the benefits of their hard work. Japan had the reputation of a country that was highly secure, and that proved true in many areas of everyday life. Yet security measures were inadequate in the most vital areas. The biggest failures were being felt in regard to the highly sensitive archipelago's tectonic situation. Except the standards construction. Indeed, there was no permanent major centers planned for a people's mass evacuation, dikes protecting coastal cities were dumped, and it had strewn the land with unstable atomic reactors. How could it have happened? To such a degree of fatal recklessness? It defied my logic, and challenged me to know more about the nature of such acts. These plants were all-time bombs. Japan was the first country designer of robots. The universities did extensive research in this area. Automotive manufacturers were planning to switch production to robotics. And while we discussed and worked on the fact whether they would give robots human aspect or not, we did not think for one moment to the design of robots that may operate in hostile environments, such as a nuclear power plant, for example. During the Fukushima crisis, we hurried on the spot to settle the situation. Human workers, samurai sacrificed in modern times, they received high doses of radioactivity daily. Within a perspective of endless work, it would be months, years, to contain the problem. These courageous workers were sent to deal with death, to repair incompetence and recklessness of their criminal leaders sitting behind their desks.
It should be noted that the Japanese crisis was not isolated. The world was entirely subject to the same regime and threatened at any moment to go down into chaos.
I've not found at this time the archives for the following events. I still do not know if this crisis could be a major overcome, and I was very sad to see these people to sink into the limbo. During my research, I was emotionally attached to the civilization of which I admired in many ways, but I was amazed to see that despite the tragic turn of events, no re-question of the energy production mode, and even less of the society system in general, especially the economy, was decided. People seemed to have blind faith in their leaders, yet had placed them on the precipice's brink. These people, had they lost their ancestral instincts for survival? By what kind of magic, that people so smart to me, was so blinded to head straight in ranks, to the precipice? There must be an explanation for this strange phenomenon, and I think have found it, in part, in a major and unavoidable fact of that time, the media and the art of manipulation attitudes. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. In the 18th century, on the continent called Europe, a debate raged on question of the good or bad nature of man. The myth of the noble wild contrast to the myth of original sin. Thus we developed the idea that man was formed and corrupted by its social environment, which was contrary to religious precepts of the Church, who claimed that the man was corrupt in its nature. The first mind's manipulations were conveyed by religions. One book could change the course of history, the Bible. Through this work, exploited by the various powers that be, men adhered to the belief of one God made in their image. They identified him there and developed the technoid Western civilization, which became the international standard.
The man began talking to God and God answered to him. Man was God.
The monotheistic religion engendered a monolithic civilization, in the single thought, and a monopolistic economy. The technology developing, we improved the mental controls of populations, and we were able to establish, durably, the merchant's empire. The mechanism will be described as follows: a religion in the service of politics, enslaved by economic actors, all powerful. We must note that in its foundations, the Occidental civilization would conquer the world, was mortiferous. It opposed nature to culture, life wasn't pure, the body was bad, only the life in a hypothetical hereafter was to be considered. This patriarchal society will cut in its foundations, human roots, by eradicating any barriers to the project, including murders large-scale, inquisition, destruction and concealment of knowledge and cultures of peoples, and religious war.